So I'm from Oregon. I'm in Oregon right now. I don't know if you can see the timber above me. It's all wet and moist, just like Oregon's trees usually are. I've got, deer feces by my left foot. There is a river flowing past me. It's very Oregon-y. I live and breathe Oregon. I live here. I breathe Oregon air with my organs, my lungs, they're organs. I've played the pipe organs while breathing with my organs in Oregon. And so if anybody wants to question, my credentials, I think that would be a tough thing to do. And right now, Oregon's in the news for a number of different reasons, but the main one is that we just passed Measure 110, which allows for the decriminalization of hard drugs, including methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, and a lot of people, for whatever reason, seem to think that the legalizing those is a bad idea. It's as if they don't want people to use them. But I'm going to argue, that was a joke I made, but I'm going to argue that even if your goal is to reduce the use of those hard drugs, which I'd say is a goal that makes sense, the decriminalization of them is only going to help in that effort, as well as reduce public expenditures in a lot of different avenues and make individuals who are dealing with those problems and the communities that have to deal with the problems that are associated with those addictions have more resources and a much better chance in actually rectifying the situation. And so one thing that I've noticed anecdotally about the reaction to the decriminalization of those drugs and the passage of Measure 110 is that the people that are most against it tend to label themselves as conservatives or as right-wing libertarians or as people who believe in smaller government and individual liberties and getting the government off my back, and people flourishing and making it based on the merits of their own decisions and their own work, but not having some big nanny state coming in taking their taxes in order to tell them how to live their lives. And so I think there's some merits to that. The libertarians, the right-wing libertarians will say, if you want to drink alcohol, you should be able to do that if you're an adult. If you want to ride your motorcycle without a helmet, you should be allowed to do that without the government telling you what to do, even though it's a terrible decision, obviously. But then when it comes to the question of whether individuals should have the ability to, as adults, to choose to use drugs recreationally in the comfort of their own homes in a manner which wouldn't affect anybody else any more so than drinking a six-pack of alcohol after work or of beer after work wouldn't affect anybody else. Those same conservatives say, absolutely not. We need to criminalize this. We need to spend huge amounts of tax dollars on the enforcement of this and on the trials associated with it and the incarceration of people who have that. And not only do we need to do those expenditures, but the individuals who made that choice, which is a victimless crime again, to do that, they need to be, or they currently are, being branded as criminals for the rest of their life, oftentimes negating the chance that they could find good employment afterwards, because now they're felons or they're criminals and they're less likely to find employment, and also they're less likely to have found help for their treatment, help for their medical condition, because addiction is a medical condition, because they've just been incarcerated for years and then thrown back out on the streets with a criminal record and have no further help in dealing with their addiction, have no further job skills, have no further community to help fall back on to help to move on to the next phase of their life. Of course, they're going to oftentimes go back to the same cycle as before, which costs more money to incarcerate and to arrest again, and the cycle continues. So in a lot of ways, the fundamental question is whether you're going to treat drug use and drug addiction as a criminal problem in the manner which I just described, or it makes more sense to view it as a public health problem. I would argue for the latter, obviously. And so one of the things that Measure 110 does is it allocates $57 million for addiction treatment centers throughout Oregon, which I think makes a lot more sense. And if you look at other countries that have decriminalized drugs, specifically Portugal, which did it back in 2000, it radically reduced first the amount of money that was spent on incarcerating people, first of all. Outcomes for drug addicts increased significantly. The amount of not sexually transmitted diseases, but injection-related STDs like HIV their transmission reduced significantly, because again, you don't have to go as a drug user to the dark alleys to find somebody else to use a dirty needle to inject with things, because it was legalized and regulated, not necessarily encouraged, but regulated in the same way that alcohol became regulated after Prohibition ended in the 1930s. People weren't dropping dead from drinking liquor that was that could kill them, in the same way that people are dropping dead right now from injecting drugs which are cut with other drugs which will kill them. That's not going to happen anymore, and the transmission of those diseases would be reduced as well. And then also people, the fundamental reason that people are addicted, oftentimes, is that they don't have a support network, or they don't have other opportunities, or they're stuck in the cycle, which they're not able to break out of, and the incarceration and the branding of them as criminals is certainly not helping that. I think that's a very fair statement. And so insofar as that's able to be alleviated and people are actually able to get resources and not be stigmatized and criminalized for behaviors which are done throughout society in other ways. Like I said, everybody drinks alcohol and it's just a normal thing that happens, but that used to be viewed in the exact same way. Then that can start to happen. And even if you don't buy into that for whatever reason, I don't know where the logical fallacy that I've articulated is, even if you don't buy into that, if your goal is a smaller government and to reduce taxation and to allow for humans to make their own decisions without being coerced by the state, then you think you'd be supportive of that as well. And so, whichever way you slice it, I think that it's something that should be applauded.